Welcome to Technado.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another action-packed, adventure-filled episode of Technado, the most amazing technology podcast available on the internet today. I'm selling it hard today.
I need me a new hype man because he ain't doing this guy's job.
You know, I'm not used to introducing the podcast. For those that are listening out there, I'm Don Pizzette, one of the hosts of Technado, and each week I have the pleasure of helping to bring IT, technology, and security news and information to you, our audience. But this week we are making a bit of a change, which is why I'm talking right now. We are introducing a new host on the podcast. Now, I say new, but I'm going to introduce Sophie Goodwin. Sophie, you've actually been on the podcast before, so you're not brand new to everybody, but you're going to be taking over as the regular host of Technado.
Yes, absolutely. I have, I guess you could say I've been a guest before and just kind of been filling in. But yeah, now you got to see me every single week, or hear me rather. So you're going to have to deal with that.
Well, you know, Peter set the bar pretty high.
He did. Big shoes.
And I mean, at least like 12 inches above the ground. we have to get over that. I'm confident that you'll be able to do a great job. And I'm excited to see what you bring, because you actually work with our other host quite a bit in our day jobs where we film training content. So you are not new to the technology and security space. It'll be really interesting to hear your feedback. But I'm going to hand over the reins to you as the host. So what's happening?
Okay, well, thank you. We've got a lot of interesting stuff we're going to go over today. I guess probably I should acknowledge that there's a third person in the room with us, as much as I hate to do it. We have Daniel here with us, who you all know and love, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I get the
They know
so much.
Maybe, love, that's suspect, but yeah.
We were going to replace Daniel as well, but the
With
toaster we
ChatGPT.
ordered got lost by UPS.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring up ChatGPT, and everything you asked me, I'm just going to type it in there, and I'm going to give you that answer.
And honestly, half the time it would probably work.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
there's
Right?
no way it would have enough 80s movie references.
I don't know. It knows all of Wikipedia.
You'd have to put it in there like, describe Wi-Fi 7 using 80s movie references.
Oh, I'm doing that right.
Yeah, we need to do that. Anyway, we'll put that one in the hopper for ChatGPT.
Okay, well, now that you've gotten that out of your system, y'all want to go ahead and get started?
I guess we will.
Okay, so first up, we've got an article from Ars Technica. It says RIP, or rest in peace, I guess, Surface Duo. Microsoft reportedly gives up on the weird form factor, but Microsoft is still all in with Android and plans a Galaxy Fold-style device. So the Surface Duo, it's the two-screen that had like the 360 hinge. Is that right?
I don't think it's 360. Is it 360 if it opens all the way around? I guess it would be 360.
Yes,
Thought of it
that
that
would
way.
be 360.
So yeah, it's two screens, and Microsoft announced this. Oh, I don't know, about 2.5 years ago now. They announced the Surface Duo and the Surface Neo, right before the pandemic. It was holiday season before the pandemic started. And I looked at it, and I didn't care for the Surface Duo because that was their phone factor, but the Surface Neo looked pretty interesting to me. That was more of a tablet form factor. They immediately canceled the Neo when the pandemic hit, but the Duo has hung around, and I've actually seen a number of them out in the wild. I think I had voiced at the time my concern of, I just don't know how long a device like that is going to last. Like when you have a screen that folds over and over again. If you think about a laptop, you open and close every single day. Eventually those hinges break. Well, here the screen is involved in that process.
And it wasn't 360 degrees. It was like 347 degrees.
Whoa.
It was super close. And so you're like, well, why doesn't this? Oh, it broke. Oh, that's why they stopped this thing.
Yeah. So, you know, the folding devices, I haven't spent any personal money on any of them yet. Have either of you?
No.
I do not have the personal money to spend on that.
Yeah,
so no.
I think
I see Anthony has one. He's got
Really?
a Fold, I think, a
Does he?
Galaxy Fold, and he's even got a case on it, which is interesting because it's got this weird fat hinge thing that allows it. It's a very odd looking case. When it's folded up, it looks okay, except it's about as thick as a hamburger.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess you got to keep that fold safe because
That was one of the early comments, was because it's a foldable device, you can't put a case on it, and you can't put screen protectors on it either because the tolerances are, So, you know, if you stick it in your pocket and a little piece of sand gets in between the screens, you're
done.
Yeah, not a good. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
it's got
your keys can get between it and nothing happens, but one grain of sand, and you know, it's just a It's a
Gorilla
mess.
Glass is like the biggest sham of our age,
Yeah.
right? It's when you can scratch the hell out of your screen at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
I agree. You've seen my phone, and
It's not pretty.
it's not pretty. And I used Gorilla Glass, so there you go.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, user error, maybe, possibly.
I remember when Nate broke one of his phones. Nate here at the office, our IT guy, and he broke his screen. And he told me what happened. It's like he had set his phone on his bed, and he had just gotten home from work, and he took his belt off, and he threw his belt on the bed,
And
the buckle just kind of snapped just right and shattered the screen. And
no way.
He said it had Gorilla Glass 2, but it should really be called Gorilla Glass Poo, which I thought was pretty funny. That was a clean joke.
That was a good one. That was a good one. He's good. With our help, he could be the best.
He could be. I've worked with better,
but not
many. So the Surface Duo, I'm not surprised to see it go away. Maybe it'll get replaced by something else. But if you loved it, well, prepare to have your heart broken.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, the next one we've got here is from the New York Times. I'm sure y'all have probably heard about a lot of the flights that were canceled or delayed right around the holiday time period. And the FAA says that there's no evidence it was caused by a cyber attack. It says it traced the problem to a damaged database file. So I know we got a question about this. We did a webinar a week or so ago, and somebody had asked, like, do you think this was a cyber attack? Was this, what happened? And evidently not, but I can see why maybe they would think that, because it did cause a lot of panic.
Yeah. Now, what was interesting here is if you've ever read about like the technology behind the FAA and air traffic control across the United States, like it's pretty phenomenal stuff. It's all built with really high levels of redundancy. So when one system fails, they can flip over at a moment's notice to an entirely redundant set of equipment because that's how important air traffic control is. Well, in this case, a lot of flights had to be grounded, travel plans disrupted, and it turns out that the database corruption was actually present in both of the redundant systems, in the one that was active and in the one that was standby. And it's kind of a lesson, like if you don't work at the FAA, you might wonder, why do I care about this? But in any industry, when you set up like an active standby replication, you have to know that something that happens in the active area is going to replicate to the standby. And so if something like a virus gets into the main active system, it will replicate to the standby system as well. And so problems like these show why it's so important that you have backups too. A replica is not necessarily a backup if it's online. Everybody who gets hit by ransomware learns that lesson really fast. So the FAA is no different, but they did have to resort to restoring from backups, and that's why the flights were grounded so long and why so much of a disruption happened. They're saying it's not a cyber attack. Now, to me, they're saying, yeah, it was a corrupted database. But they're not saying how it got corrupted. And so there is still the potential that it could have been a cyber attack, but we'd have to put on our tinfoil hats for that one. We'd have to have
Yeah, because, they don't quote it, but it does, the subtitle of this is the agency said that there was no evidence it was caused by a cyber attack. Or is it no evidence that we've discovered? Or no evidence that we're willing to share? Like, I always have to probe a little deeper with these people because you never know.
In this case, so let's say it was a hard drive failing, right?
Yeah.
You have to imagine these database files are stored on a RAID array. RAID arrays fail. They have redundancies and all that, but data can become corrupted. But in that scenario, if the drive fails, that should be a failover event. You can't replicate corrupted data from a drive failing.
Right.
Now, you could have memory corruption. I don't know if you guys remember, it was months ago, we were talking about cosmic rays, and Google was
bit
saying...
flipping.
And bit flipping. Stuff like that happens in RAM, maybe that can make it over to the other side. But again, to corrupt a file is a bit of a stretch. So for this to happen, it would usually have to mean like some kind of client error that, maybe code that wasn't tested in staging.
I was going to say, they probably pushed some bad code at this point, right?
But it's the FAA. And
they are not sinless perfection, Don.
But they have about as many controls as anybody.
It's true.
Maybe NASA is the only one that goes even further.
Well, and maybe this is just one of those instances that proves just how difficult doing things like this really is. And even though you can have all the controls in the world, mistakes still can be made. And it's just...
Yeah,
it's a matter of time before they actually show themselves.
So I've been watching a lot of X-Files lately. I don't know if
it's weird that you say that.
Oh,
because this morning I was driving to work. I was like, you know what? I have not watched the X-Files in a while. I'm gonna start watching the X-Files again.
Oh, I've been watching the last couple of weeks. I'm in season 4.
Oh,
right now.
okay.
So
that's when it starts getting weird, right? That's like the last really good season, and then it gets a little weird.
Yeah.
And then it comes back and starts getting good again. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm in that stretch.
But
But
it feels like I have nothing to offer when it comes to X-Files.
you didn't watch the X-Files at all?
I feel like we should make that mandatory viewing for her at this point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not all of it. It's a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, seasons 1 through 4 at least.
That's my homework for this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
At
Oh,
least
you're not making it
episode-
through seasons 1 through 4 in a weekend.
She needs to start with the episode Home.
I wish I knew. Wish I understood.
Oh, so it was banned. It aired one time in its entirety, and it was banned from airing after that
Okay.
because people were calling, going, "What is this?
What did I just watch?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I'm really disturbed, and I don't like it, and make it stop. Kill it with fire."
Okay.
Yeah.
You give me like a new fear every day, but all right, I'll look into that.
Yep.
Home.
So anyhow, I've got this X-Files mindset, right? And I don't want to be Fox Mulder necessarily, but
Yeah.
in this case, all right, they've told us what the cause is, and I get it. All right, you got database corruption; it made it into the redundant systems, and so that caused the outage. All right, but something had to cause that,
Right.
and they haven't disclosed it. Maybe we'll find out one day, but I would say that there is still a chance that this could have been pulled off by a cyber attack.
Well, I mean, and of course, okay, so we LastPass, right? They tell us, yeah, we had some breach of our source code, no big deal, right?
Nothing to
It's
see
a
here,
big
move
deal.
along.
Well, last week we talked about CircleCI. You know, somebody breached our source code, no big deal. We'll see. And then now we got this. You know, there's no cyber attack, no big deal. It seems like this is now the default. Like, if we're going by that logic, if that is any kind of correlation, then maybe that's what we're seeing. It's the first flag of no big deal before they go, so the F.A.A. is on fire, and there's 20 dead bodies.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't catch those in our first
Yeah,
inspection.
man, we really should have looked at that code a whole lot better. But next time we'll do better, we promise.
Yeah.
Love those. Seems like there's a lot of that happening recently. Like,
Yeah.
this thing happened, but it's no big deal, and we may get to talk about that more in a little bit. But
Yeah.
All right, so thank you for that riveting discussion on the X-Files.
We'll put together a watch list
Yes,
for you. 'Cause
absolutely.
the one with the vampire pizza boy.
Oh,
that
man.
was a good one.
that was a weird one, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't think I could have predicted the string of words that we're going to find.
Don uses that as his
That's
pseudo.
like you consulted it. You
His
consulted a
random
bot.
generator.
So up next, we've got this is an article from Tom's Hardware. It says Wi-Fi 7 is coming. Here's what you need to know. Expect speeds of up to 46 gigabits per second with the new standard. So I read a little bit about this, and I think we may have talked about this in an episode that I had the fortune of coming on previously, talking about how it's increased transfer speeds, reduced latency, boosted, I think, network capacity. And I remember thinking, like, at the time I had no idea that it's like there was Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7. It's like the Fast and Furious franchise. Like, so there's a little
Wi-Fi
bit
7.
Yeah.
1,000.
But it's a little bit, there's a lot of in this article about, you're probably thinking, I just bought a new Wi-Fi 6 router. It's already outdated. So is that true?
All right. So when it comes to wireless, especially at your home, in my opinion, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So if your Wi-Fi is working fine at home, there's not really anything driving you to upgrade. However, Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 are being ushered in because some people, and I don't know these people, but some people somewhere are starting to get 2 gigabit fiber connections at home. I have fiber at home, but it's only 1 gigabit in the blazing metropolis of Gainesville.
Yeah.
1 gigabit is the best you can get. But some people, I have to assume in like Seattle or New York or somewhere, are starting to get 2 gigabit. So Wi-Fi standards need to improve to be able to take advantage of that higher speed. And so that's where we saw Wi-Fi 6 come in, where it could do 1.2 gigabit as your maximum bandwidth. Still not full, but it was more than a gigabit. Then we had, let's see what was next, Wi-Fi 6E, which was also 1.2 gigabit. That one just added the 6 gigahertz frequency, but it allowed you to have more people connected, but it didn't really increase speeds. And then the new one, Wi-Fi 7, which is 2.4 gigabit. So this is where it finally exceeds that speed at home. So if you've upgraded at home or if it's available in your area to get 2 gigabit broadband, Well, now you can have a wireless standard that allows you to take full advantage of that. Otherwise, you're being throttled. Now, if you have 10 devices on your network, they're all dividing it up and it's all fine. But if you have an individual machine on wireless and you want to take advantage of 2 gigabit, this is where it comes in.
I have one question, Don.
Just one?
Yeah, just one. Just one. It's a simple question because I'm a simple man. Do I now get to get a router that does this?
Oh, that moves.
That's all I care. All right? I don't need stinking standard routers. Static routers just stand there with their antennas sticking straight up like some crazed mannequin. I want antennas that move. Right? I'm like Russ, what's his name, that needs a car with doors that do this.
That's right.
Or this.
It'll be in the 3 commas club.
Yeah, that's right. Race commas.
So we'll probably start seeing houses designed with giant wireless infrastructure in the
built
middle.
into it, yeah.
And
you just plug into that, and then your house is the Wi-Fi router.
Cancer rates will be through the roof. Now,
these tumors are horrible, but man, my reception's amazing. Look at this data.
remember the good old days when we had like 802.11a and 802.11b, and then we had G and N, and then it went to AC. Wi-Fi 6 is 802.11ax. Wi-Fi 6E is 802.11ax also, which is confusing, right? So that's nice. And now we have Wi-Fi 7, which is 802.11be. So we have jumped up quite a bit. BE, as far as I know, it doesn't actually stand for anything. It's just the letters they have picked to stick on there. But this is the new standard. It runs at 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz and gets you up to 46 gigabit as a theoretical maximum. So impressive stuff.
So the BE makes me think of, so I play guitar. There's an amp builder out there called Friedman that makes makes amps. And he has an amp called the BE 100. And it does stand for something, and I don't think I can say it in mixed company. And that's exactly what I was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Well, I'm going to look that up.
I was going to say, I got to Google. Thank you.
Oh, all his amp names are very inappropriate.
It's Friedman?
Friedman, Friedman, Friedman amps.
Any connection to Marty Friedman?
No.
Just curious.
He is not.
Okay.
I don't even think he plays those amps, to be honest with you.
I'm doing a dumb thing instead.
Okay.
I like how Dodd's looking this up. Like,
He's
he's like, I have to know. And you too, right? Get on you're on the computer right now.
Yeah.
Open a tab and
just take a look.
There's the BE 100. Yeah.
I've got to put it. It's not saying what it stands for, though. Now, the mystery. This is going to bug us forever.
I'll give you a hint. There's also the hairy BE.
You know, I have a somewhat vulgar mind, but I'm not able to connect that one even.
He's got a small amp called the PT. But,
all right, well,
if I thought about it long enough, but
maybe he's dropped all those nomenclatures at this point. Because
all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and just steer this away from that before we get too far down that rabbit hole. So we've got another article this is from The Verge. It says Intel breaks the 6 gigahertz barrier with $699 Core i9. I'm gonna butcher this. i9-13900KS. I'm not familiar with this. Processor. So I'm going to learn today. Intel's latest 13th generation CPU arrives today. This was January 12th. So, like I said, it was last week with a 6 gigahertz max turbo frequency at stock speeds. And I'm really hoping that you can break this down and kind of explain this to me.
Absolutely. All right. So let's start with that model number, the i9 13900KS. The 13 tells you that it's 13th generation. So it's the new generation of Intel processors that are being released in 2022 and 2023. The KS tells you that it's unlocked, so which means you can overclock it if you want, which is likely how we're getting to that 6 gigahertz barrier. You know, back in the day, if we go back in time, there used to be an earlier, more innocent time of computing when if you had a 486 33 megahertz processor and then somebody down the street got a 486 40 megahertz processor, right? Like that megahertz speed started going up and up, and then you had the like DX266.
What was the law that like every 6 months like technology became obsolete because new technology came? There was like a specific they came up with a law.
I know there was Moore's law about the size, but I don't think it was the doubling, or maybe it was doubling. Yeah. But we used to see that. We used to see these big jumps. And I remember when they went from megahertz to gigahertz, that was a big deal. Like if you had an 800 megahertz processor and all of a sudden they went to 1.2 gigahertz, it was like, holy crap. And then you had multiple cores. So if you had 4 1.2 gigahertz cores, like that was impressive. But then something happened around 4.5 gigahertz, around that range, where they kind of just gave up and stopped and started adding more cores, right? And what actually happened was their efficiency got impaired. So in electronics, when you feel a device that's hot, if an electronic device is giving off heat, that's losing energy. It's inefficiently using the energy that it has.
It was Moore's Law, by the way.
It was Moore's Law.
Yeah.
Okay. Today we learned that, so, we should be seeing doubles, and we haven't been seeing doubles. We've been seeing them add cores, which in some cases in multi-threaded workloads can be doubling, but in normal workloads is not. Well, it started to look like they wouldn't be able to get past the 6 gigahertz barrier. There were a few people that did it by immersing the processor in liquid nitrogen, and it would destroy the processor after just a few minutes, so that they couldn't really get anything beyond a demo. But now we have an actual commercially available processor that's broken that 6 gigahertz barrier. So it's just right at 6 gigahertz, which is kind of neat to see. It is overclocked to get there, though, which means it's going to run hot. You're going to need a big fan. It's going to be loud, but it'll do it. But it'll also go all the way down to something like 3 gigahertz for normal running.
So, Don, I got out of hardware a long time ago, where it became an obsession, where you're looking at the newest specs. And you've apparently stayed in that sphere. You always are bringing in cool technology for us to talk about here on Technado. Explain to me why this matters. Why don't we just go to GPU models, right? If GPUs are faster than CPUs and you can get so much more data processing out of them, what would be the advantage of going to something like an i9 instead of building a GPU rig that does all these? Tell me why I would use one or the other.
So this is the old scale up versus scale out argument, right? So if you have a multi-threaded workload, which almost all graphics are, right? So when you're doing rendering and there's a million polygons on your screen, it's really easy to drop the rendering of each polygon into a separate pipeline. So you have CUDA cores and things in a GPU that can handle that. It breaks up really well, and it's all math. But in a general purpose processor, like your CPU, it has to be ready for just about anything. At the end of the day, it is still just math, right? But there's a lot of single-threaded workloads that happen, and that's where scaling up is what's going to get you that performance. Now, in a perfect world, everything would be multi-threaded, and cores would be the answer. But if you've got a workload that doesn't take advantage of multiple cores, that's where you want to push this and get it as high as you can.
So this is a very specific application for this.
I hesitate to say specific because it's anything that's single-threaded.
Okay. Well, I guess the question then becomes, what's the ratio of threaded to multi-threaded applications out there? Is it skewed heavily one way or the other, or is it kind of around the 50-50 mark?
In this day and age, I would say that most things are multi-threaded, but you'll find legacy software that's not. But you'll also find things like there's several video games and stuff where their main engine is still single-threaded.
Gotcha.
It does happen. And there's some software that just naturally doesn't lend itself to being multi-threaded. So, there's just various scenarios that you can bump into like that.
Well, we learn something new every day, don't we, gentlemen?
And I'll just say, I'm not dying to jump out and get this processor. It retails.
You ain't got a lie to make friends, Don.
It retails at $700, which
it's your lie. You tell it like you want.
I almost thought I was going to have to upgrade my computer at home because Windows 11 wasn't updating. It said I didn't have a TPM. I was like, I could have swore I had a TPM. And in my BIOS, somehow it had gotten turned off. So I just turned it back on. Yeah. Problem solved. But otherwise, there's not a lot motivating me to upgrade my computer.
So wait, you're telling me that a security feature on your computer magically got turned off?
Yeah, but it wasn't a cyber attack. It was cosmic rays. Cosmic rays.
Damn you, son.
All right, well, I feel a little bit like the penguins in the Madagascar movie. Just smile and wave. I'm just here smiling and nodding. Yes. Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take a little second to process everything that I've just learned here. We'll go ahead and take a break, but don't worry, we will be back right after this with more Technado.
The IT Pro TV app is available for iOS and tvOS. The modern user interface makes navigation easy. Recently watched videos can be found on the home screen, as well as our daily live streams. Choose landscape mode for larger viewing. Access the entire course library by clicking on the play icon. Navigate our content by category, certification, and job role. Learn where you want and when you want as a premium annual member by downloading episodes for offline viewing. Watch on the go and pick up later on any of your favorite devices. So head to the App Store and download the IT Pro TV app.
This is Josh. Josh spent $2,500 on a week of classroom training for CompTIA A+ and got certified. Josh got a good job that pays $40,000 per year. This is Jeremy. Jeremy only spent $299 on a full year of training from IT Pro TV, including A+ and 300 other courses. Jeremy also got a great job that pays $40,000 per year. Jeremy used the more than $2,200 he saved on IT training for a fabulous tropical vacation. Now, Jeremy is still using his IT Pro TV membership to study for Network Plus and Security Plus to advance his career, but not spending any more money, since all three are included in his IT Pro TV membership, plus 300 more courses. Don't be like Josh. Choose IT Pro TV for your IT training.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Technado. Up next, we're going to get into, as Daniel describes them, some of the biggest blunders on the internet with our next segment, Do. There it is. So this article comes to us from Ars Technica. It says a fifth of passwords used by federal agency cracked in security audit. 89% of the department's high-value assets did not use multi-factor authentication. And it talks a little bit about some of the passwords that it discovered that were used. And I myself, especially in recent weeks, have been very hypersensitive and paranoid about my passwords. I went in and changed everything, and I'm like using password generators and whatever. So it was just interesting to see the U.S. Department of the Interior. Some of the passwords used were password 1234, password 1234 with an exclamation point, and change it now. So it was just my favorite. Yes. Yeah. So it's just interesting to see that it's not just the little people that have these problems.
It was interesting to me the number one password, and this was of the ones they cracked, right? So they cracked 20%. It was 1 out of 5 passwords. That's a lot. The number one was password -1234, which that tells me that that's likely being set as a default somewhere, and users are supposed to change it, and maybe the users aren't. But that was used 478 times, so it's not like just a once or twice. But the one that got me was number 2. I had to look this one up because the number 2 password was Broncos 2012. And
it's the Federal Reserve out in Denver.
Well, so I looked at it, I'm like, Broncos 2012, and they sort of tried the O's or zeros, the S is a $, but otherwise it's Broncos 2012. I could see where
like a regular user would think that was awesome.
So I looked that up because it was used 389 times, which again tells me that's got to be a default somewhere.
Right.
But that's the year that the Denver Broncos went totally defeated. That's the year that they apparently didn't win a single game.
That's what I call ironic.
And oh wait, hang on. Do I have this backwards?
Was it undefeated?
Yeah, I might have it backwards. After a 2-3 season at the start, they ended to finish 13-3.
So
I don't know. So the Broncos, apparently it was a good season for them. All right, I got this totally
maybe
backwards.
That's why they liked it so much.
Fake. I'm spreading fake news about the Broncos.
Misinformation, right here.
So they anyhow the Broncos had a season in 2012. This is what I'm going to commit to now,
and it's stuck in people's memories.
They won their second consecutive AFC West Division title and earned a first-round bye for the first time since 2005, which was a big deal for them.
Yeah, now I'm confused again because that doesn't seem enough to make it where 389 times.
People like the Broncos.
Yeah, somebody does.
And there's a lot of federal
employees
lost in Denver.
In the divisional round by a double overtime score. So maybe that was why. Maybe it was a big deal, like that loss. I don't know. Who knows? We can speculate about that forever and ever, I guess.
Go sports ball.
Well, there it is.
So yeah, there were other great passwords in there like Orlando 0000 and so on, but the
that was in Minnesota.
It's actually after Orlando Bloom.
Yeah,
because he has pretty hair.
He is a handsome man. So, look, Sophia was like, he is.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
So every time I think of Orlando Bloom, I always think of Legolas. Like that's just
that's him to me.
So
it changes nothing. He's still got beautiful hair.
But the message it sends to us though is we've been talking about passwords a lot on the podcast because of LastPass and several other breaches. It is more important than ever to have secure passwords, and people don't. At least 25% of the people tested by the Department of the Interior.
They don't need you judging their life decisions, Don.
Oh, I'm judging. Now, Daniel, you talked about it briefly last episode about how you use extremely long passwords in a password generator. What is the Daniel rule of thumb of what a secure password is?
Default all things. Or default of 30 characters of
30
all
characters.
of all character sets that they allow.
All right, so you don't. I had a question about this.
Yeah.
In LastPass, the arbiter of great passwords, they have a feature where when you do a random password generator, you can choose to not use ambiguous characters. So, like 0 and O can be confused, or...
And then there was you can make it more readable. There was an option to make it more readable.
So
Yeah.
how much does that weaken security?
How much does it weaken security? So I would say that doesn't weaken it a whole lot, I would think, off the top of my head, just because it's more about length and complexity, right?
Okay.
Because those two things are meant to defeat the two types of attacks that come against passwords, which are brute force attacks, where I just start at 0 and you tell me how many characters to go to, and I just try every permutation of character sets until I reach that, which is why it takes billions of years or whatever to crack long passwords, right? So you have that. So length will help defeat those things. The longer it is, the longer it takes for that damn thing to go through it and find the right hit, right? Then you have dictionary brute force attacks, where I just have a list of passwords and you run it through a system that hashes that password, compares that hash to the hash that it has, and sees, is there a match? If there's a match, then you have the right password, right? So what you do is you make them complex. You make them weird. You don't make them readable, right? So if LastPass is making something more readable, that doesn't necessarily mean it's turning it into a dictionary word. It just means that you're not getting, asterisk, $, capital B, J, so on and so forth. You're probably getting something more consistent.
I was thinking if I know that in order to disambiguate that they're going to remove capital O's because they could be zeros, they're going to remove lowercase L's because they could be capital I's.
Do you know that's what they're going to do specifically? Does it say we are every time removing capital O's?
I've not looked,
okay,
but it has to be doing it the same way every time, so it shouldn't be hard to figure out what their pattern is.
Yeah.
So if I know they're removing certain characters, that shrinks the pool of characters.
Yes.
So, but if you're doing a
if you have a
30 character
sufficiently
password,
right, it doesn't
not significant.
matter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wondered about that. It's not
It went from 2 billion years to 1 billion years.
Oh, well.
Right. That's kind of how it goes. Really, the lengthy passwords that are just random enough that they don't show up. Now, we do see some obfuscation stuff in here, but you'll notice that they're just taking words and they're changing a character to a different character. And that used to be a really good method, and it still can be useful. But if you do that with much longer passwords, that's going to be helpful. That's where you're really going to make your money on this stuff. And what I love about this is that as someone who trains security, and specifically where you're cracking a password in, I'm trying to teach you about strong security and strong I found a password hash because we did this attack, and now we're going to crack that password. And the password was password 1234. And they go, and I invariably get someone going, well, Daniel, no wonder you cracked that password. It's password 1234. It's too easy. Well, guess what? People use that password all the flipping time. So it is not outside of the realm of even it's very probable you will hit that password given enough password hashes. Yeah. And it doesn't take a lot of password hashes to make it happen. You're going to find how many was password 1234? 318 people.
Yeah.
That had that in one given system.
Now, I thought it was interesting the equipment they use, because sometimes we hear about the stuff. Actually, we talked about earlier this episode. Like if you need multiple cores and a big rig to be able to do this, but they pulled this off with equipment that wasn't out of reach.
It's not crazy.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to go out and buy 2 servers that have 8 GPUs in them each, but it's not undoable if you wanted to do this.
They spent less than $15,000. So $15,000, you could build a rig with 16 GPUs in it that is a password cracking machine. If you're a nation state if
You
you're
totally have this.
yeah, probably better.
Yeah, right. Right? No wonder. Where'd all the 4090s go? I don't know.
And that's why it's so important that we maintain complex passwords
Right.
and that we understand that the attackers have tools that are impressive.
So the fact that we have password managers is pretty, it's kind of a standard thing now as far as at least people in the security realm goes. Now, maybe mom and pa out there might not be hip to that. But if we start pushing much more strong passwords to where people are getting upset about it, you go, well, you just need a password manager. Password manager, you just tell it I need a 30-character password. Click, 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 generate, copy, paste that. You're done. You don't even have to worry. You don't even have to know that password because the password manager takes care of it for you. As long as you use one good password. If I can get you to learn one really good password that you change on a certain amount of time that rotates out and you use something else, if I can get you to do that, we might be able to solve this password problem by just forcing people to use, stop trying to, placate to the lowest common denominator. Force people into longer passwords. I know they're going to complain. I know they're going to bitch and complain. But as soon as you teach them the ease of using a password manager, they're probably going to go, oh, this isn't a big deal. It just takes somebody to help them, hold their hand for a second.
And the situation keeps getting worse, but I figure after a couple of public executions, problem will be solved. People will
they will snap and salute, won't they? Oh, yes, sir. I love this 30-character password, and I'm glad that you finally made it this long. I waited for the day.
Okay, well, before we get too far into revolutionary ideals here, we're going to go ahead and switch gears. Sometimes there's a story that comes out that y'all talk about on Technado, and it takes a while for all of the details to kind of emerge, and so then we get to come back and revisit that story later on in this segment, Deja News.
Deja
News.
Nice funky little beat there. That's fun. Okay. So this article is from TechCrunch. It says CircleCI says hackers stole encryption keys and customers' secrets. So I wasn't really familiar with CircleCI. It says that it's a delivery platform used to implement DevOps practices. So learned something new about that, and it confirmed that some data was stolen in a data breach. So love that.
Yep. We reported on this last week. CircleCI kind of important because of the role that they play, right? Companies can engage with them, connect their GitHub repositories to CircleCI's infrastructure, and then CircleCI can sync the GitHub repos, compile the applications, test them across platforms, and then deploy them into those companies' production environments. And that means that CircleCI has access not only to your GitHub repos, but also to your production environment. And last week they announced that they were breached, and they were encouraging their customers to reset their passwords as well as rotate any secret keys that were stored in the platform. Well, now we've learned that the breach is far worse than that. The attackers are actually able to gain access to the private keys, to the decryption keys that were stored in CircleCI's platform, which means they had access to everything.
That sounds bad, though.
It does sound bad, doesn't it? All the source code, all the keys to production systems, literally everything, 100% of the data stored within CircleCI was exposed.
We should have seen this coming because, if I'm not mistaken, CircleCI stands for Confidential Informant.
Not confidential in this case, right?
No, right.
It's more like community
it's your
informant.
confidential. They're the informant.
All right,
This
teamwork.
is right. This is not false advertising here, people.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's how it goes.
Well, we spent a lot of time over the last few weeks talking about LastPass and how bad that was, but at least with LastPass, the passwords were stored in an encrypted state, and the attackers don't have the decryption key, so they have to work at it. They have to brute force it. In the case of CircleCI, I have a hard time saying it's worse because it's not like they're not a password company, but it certainly is worse in that literally all of their security is just blown right out the window. There's just nothing left. So it's as bad a breach as you can have with a company.
Yeah, this does not bode well for them. And I bet LastPass is just breathing a sigh of relief that little spotlight has now shifted over to good old CircleCI. They're like, yeah, what about CircleCI? Go talk to them. They have way worse than us. Please leave us alone. Stop saying bad things.
I don't think it'll overshadow LastPass just because LastPass has a huge B2C, like a consumer market. Individuals sign up for LastPass. Right. Individuals don't sign up for CircleCI.
No, they do not.
So it just affects businesses, which most people don't care about.
Well, we tried for you, LastPass.
Yeah. But it does show that at a minimum, if you use CircleCI, you're in danger, right? So you absolutely need to be rotating keys, and your source code has been disclosed. So whatever you have in your private GitHub repos that CircleCI is connected to, those have effectively been exposed. So big challenge because you can't take that back.
Yeah, and CircleCI ain't got time to bleed, so. I love how Dodd gets that joke.
Yeah.
Even this article on this issue with CircleCI kind of rags on LastPass at the very end. It's like, this is kind of like what happened with LastPass. How the password.
Remember that LastPass thing? Leave me alone.
There's really no escaping for them.
Now, the other lesson that you can take away from this, though, is that if you leverage a third-party service to do something like application testing like this, it is important to try and vet them, make sure that they're following security practices. I didn't check to see if, CircleCI had been externally audited. That's a good question to ask people is, have you been externally audited? And that's different than asking if they've been pen tested, right? Because a pen test is one thing, but an audit covers your business processes, your legal and regulatory compliance. There's a lot more involved in an audit than a pen test. Pen test super valuable. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. It's not an either or. It's a both and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So definitely questions you want to ask of any vendor you use, not just CircleCI, because I feel like 2023 is off to a really rough start, and it's only going to get worse.
Well, we'll have plenty of stuff to talk about here on Technado then, won't we?
Well, yeah, until we get hacked. And
Yeah. You shut your mouth, Don Brissett.
Although you can make the argument that Technado does not store any valuable data.
No, at all.
I gotta love that glass half full viewpoint. Thank you for that
Actually,
optimistic.
we might be a part of the
outlook.
problem at this point.
That's right. After my Broncos 2012 reporting, I
Yeah.
feel like our information is less than valuable.
And if you really think about it, it's like, well, we have Technado, and Technado requires technology, which requires cobalts, and there's like human suffering in cobalt mines. You see how it goes down the rabbit hole real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where I thought that was going, but it wasn't there. So thank you for that. You always,
Yeah. and
Got to bring attention, right?
Technado is not conflict free.
No.
Yeah, it's
when they say child labor, they just
Wow.
mean me.
Yeah.
It's just me. I'm the child.
She's only 12, ladies and gentlemen.
That's that's probably as good a place as any, I think, to wrap it up before I get myself in trouble. So I think yeah, we're gonna go ahead and stop there.
All right. I'm going to walk us out this episode. Sophie's going to be taking over next week as he kind of learns the rigmarole that we do here, our high levels of professionalism. It's hard to live up to. It's tough. But I do want to remind everybody that this podcast, Technado, is brought to you by the fine folks at ACI Learning and IT Pro TV. So if you want to support the podcast, be sure to sign up at IT Pro TV. It's our day job. It's how we make our real money. So if you visit our website, technado.com, there's a giant orange button at the top right corner that says sponsored by IT Pro. You just click on that and you can sign up. I believe we have a discount code for 30% off the life of your subscription, which is pretty sweet. Applies to individual users as well as team accounts. So be sure to take advantage of that. And Technado is not the only type of free content that we put out like this. We also do webinars pretty often. You can check that out over at itpro.tv/webinars, and you'll see recorded webinars from people like Daniel, which are of marginal value, and with other people that are
So Sophie's in on those too. So
Yes.
He just cut her legs off.
That was Daniel's one break
part
for
of the
me.
problem.
Yeah.
Used to be when he filmed Technado. That was his one break from
Yeah.
me. Now he gets no breaks.
No,
That's no good deed goes unpunished.
that's true.
But be sure to check that out over at the webinars page. What's coming up? We've got we just did one with John Hammond, which was cool.
Got one with Wes and Anthony Square, right?
Actually, today.
That's today.
The day this
That
podcast
is
goes
today.
live, we'll have Wes and Anthony on there. They're going to be talking about kicking off 2023 in IT. So if you're looking to start a career in IT, they'll be talking about ways to do that. And
Say they'll talk you out of it.
there you go. It's horrible. Save yourself.
They're just smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee.
There's honor in flipping burgers, not in IT.
The things I've seen.
All right. Well, I do want to give a big thank you to Sophie. She got very little notice that she was going to jump in as host today. I'm sure you're reevaluating your life choices.
Baptism by fire. It's great. I love it.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us this week. Be sure to tune back in next week for more exciting Technado. I'm sure more things are going to get breached, and we'll have some great new tech news to report. Be sure to tune in then, and we will see you next week.